Boy, don't shoot the messenger here, please. My goodness, I wake up and I'm getting absolutely roasted. On my Facebook page, on my X, it's like, guys, I'm just reporting what I've got here. That's all I'm doing. Good morning. Happy Friday. Thanks for joining us on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We're streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app as always. So last night I put it up on social media, what I knew, what I found out from law enforcement here in Kansas City as it relates to the guy who dropped a bunch of homemade bombs in a garbage can right by the National World War I Museum and Memorial a couple of weeks back. And according to my sources within area law enforcement, this guy was just the biggest knucklehead and the biggest absolute buffoon you're ever going to find. So here's what I shared. Now, he was illegal, to be clear. I don't want to miss that headline. The man, Owen Canzaleas Argueta, 22 years old, was charged with dropping 20 explosive devices near the National World War I Museum and Memorial. He's an illegal alien from Honduras. Now, it's amazing because when you see all the headlines around Kansas City, what do they say? Man, 22-year-old. No reference to the fact that he is in this country illegally from Honduras. But then it's like, okay, what was he doing dropping these explosive devices near Liberty Memorial? And here's what we know, or here's what I know in talking to law enforcement. And this is where you guys were killing me on social media. And it's like, guys, I'm just giving you what I know. If you don't want to believe it, you don't like it, that's your prerogative. But this is what I've got. This was not some kind of terrorist act. This was someone who essentially had a bunch of supercharged fireworks that he bought last year around July 4th. And was looking to dispose of them several months later. The bad news for him is that he probably picked the worst spot in Kansas City to dump them off. Right in front of the memorial where there's cameras and law enforcement and everything else. But there was no specific targeting of Kansas City or the museum itself. He just happened to pick the worst place in Kansas City to dump them off. So this was not some kind of act of terrorism. But regardless, he now faces 20 counts of possession of an illegal explosive. And the case is being handled by the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office. Now, why would he pick that garbage can right outside of World War I don't know, but I do know this much. Okay, if this was some kind of attempt at terrorism, he dumped them off there on February 23rd, and they were found by people on the grounds one day later. So if your assertion is that, hey, this was actually terrorism and, your sources are lying to you, well, were they supposed to explode and then they didn't? Because they sat there for a day. So you're telling me he wanted to commit some act of terrorism, but he just put them in the garbage pail and they never went off? I mean, it's fine to not believe the story, and I'm just giving you what I've got and talking to multiple sources. But if you're going to tell me that is something that I'm not reporting that it is, what's the why behind that? Now, I don't know. I know what I would have done if I was him. I go to a back alley somewhere and I throw him in the trash can. Why was he there? Why that garbage pail? Why outside of World War I don't know. I don't know the why behind that. I'm just telling you, as somebody in law enforcement put it to me yesterday, this is like America's dumbest criminals, or I guess Honduras's dumbest criminals is what this really is. So that's what I've got. But I wake up today and Facebook and X and everybody's like, you're believing that story? It's like, well, I'm just telling you what I've got here. You do with it what you want. I trust the people who gave me the information. And if you don't want to trust it, that's totally fine too. Okay? I'm not going to sit here and beat you up over it. I don't care what you do with the information, John. It's just the information I've got, which no one else in Kansas City media has right now.
Yeah, it seems plausible to me. A criminal would get on our mass transit system and ride that streetcar down to Union Station and maybe think he's going to blend in with the crowd and then escape back on the streetcar.
That could work. That could very much work. Now, also, many of you are saying that he's not going to see any time. Jackson County is not going to do anything. You know, the people that I talked to yesterday said that they actually believed that Melissa Johnson was going to do this the right way and that this guy would ultimately end up being deported, but they're not going to brag about it. I did reach out to Melissa Johnson's office. She was unavailable to come on the show today. We'll see about early next week. Like, they don't want to brag about their conviction, their likely conviction coming against someone who's here illegally. But my sources are very pleased with how her office has gone about its business over its first, whatever it's been, a year in office. And they believe that they would go about it the right way, but they're not going to look for brownie points coming out of this deal. They're just going to do the job and move on.
Well, the only reason they would maybe have to bring it up is because it's not being reported.
Well,
right?
That's
so
true,
if it were
too.
just reported on the news and then they said, okay, took care of the guy convicted, no big deal. Not bragging, just fact. Close the story. We got closure.
That's true. I mean, but some of you guys were really being wise guys, wise girls last night on my social media. Pete, I think Quentin Emania Barca might make him the Grand Marshal of the Kansas City St. Patrick's Day Parade. Oh, that's too much, guys. That's too much. Take it easy, okay? None of the TV stations reported that he was an illegal. I mean, of course not. He's just a man.
He's not just a Kansas City man?
No, he's not just a Kansas City man.
No, in fact, I was talking with Keats, and we had to dig. We read all the stories. There was only one that mentioned that he was from California yesterday.
Yes. Honduras to California to Kansas City. So there you go. Did have family here. Does have family here.
No Maryland man situation.
No, we do not have a Maryland man situation. I cannot confirm or deny that, what's his name? Chris Van Hollen, the senator, is going to be coming out here to have a glass of rosé with this chump some point in the next few days. He's got enough going on there in Maryland. So he's not coming out here to have a little Tito's and soda with the guy. That's not happening. But that's what I got for you. 913-408-7957 is the text line and the studio line. As we kick it off on a Friday morning here on KCMO, you might have been up early because those storms blew through. We got Luke Doris coming up at 7:20, 1 hour from now. Talk about the severe weather that could be coming our way later this afternoon and early this evening. Now, back in Kansas City, we also have this from the Kansas City Star. The Star is confirming criminal investigation as the FBI probe shakes City Hall. So last week, Fox 4, Malik Jackson had the story first that the FBI has been investigating Mayor Pro Tem Rihanna Park Shaw and indirectly her husband, who is the head of Public Works, Michael Shaw, for the last 13 months. So this predates Trump. There's no Trump thing going on here. This goes back to January of 2025. And this week, Kansas City confirmed the existence of a criminal investigation as City Hall grapples with speculation and fallout from revelations of a federal probe. The city's legal department confirmed the investigation in an email to the Kansas City Star this week, a striking acknowledgement that the probe remains ongoing. So this was in response to the Star's request for copies of a federal grand jury subpoena the city received and any related documents. City Manager Mario Vasquez told a TV station last week that the city received subpoenas 6 months ago. By the way, can you guys just credit Fox 4? Can the Kansas City Star credit Fox 4 instead of just saying told a TV station? Just give credit to a fellow media outlet. Why are you being such a D-bag about it?
Well, they don't live here, so they're not sure which one it was.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, when you're up in Des Moines, it's kind of tough. The city denied that request, referencing two state laws as justification for its decision to deny the request for copies of a federal grand jury subpoena that the city received and any related documents. But they're admitting it's ongoing. And it's believed to be tied to campaign donations, which ties into Michael Shaw, the city's director of public works, and his wife, Mayor Pro Tem, basically the vice mayor, Rihanna Park Shaw, as she is seeking to be the next mayor here in Kansas City coming up in 2027. So we now know it's ongoing. We have confirmation of that in this story right here in Kansas City. The FBI is active in this town in this investigation. And one focus of that probe does center on Rihanna Park Shaw and her husband, according to sources to the Kansas City Star. But the sources who also spoke to the Star detailed a host of other questions from the FBI, a sign that the exact target of the investigation remains unclear. So we'll have to see. But the FBI is actively investigating something inside of Kansas City's City Hall. 913-408-7957. That is something that could absolutely explode on this city council coming up in the next, who knows, few months, a year. It's going to be very interesting. And it could have a major shakeup in the Kansas City mayor's race. And there's only one man who can come and save it. Clay Chastain. No, I'm kidding. No. Give me every corrupt official in Kansas City 10 times over before we get, Uncle Clay back in the mix. I want no part of that. No, thank you. Coming up on KCMO, Kristi Noem is out. Goodbye, sayonara, see you later. What happened? All the details next. Kristi Noem getting the boot yesterday from President Trump. And Trump really let her have it. So she was set to give a speech yesterday at about 1 o'clock our time. And apparently what happened is 15 minutes before she was set to take the stage, he let her know she was being canned. And then she still had to take the stage. So that's a tough spot for Kristi Noem. But Trump doesn't do stuff like that by accident. He wanted to make her uncomfortable. He wanted to make it awkward. And that's exactly what he did. And first off, I thought Kristi Noem was way in over her head. I thought she used that position to highlight herself, to promote herself, and that it wasn't about the mission of the President of the United States. And that there were too many opportunities for her to try to right some wrongs, and she totally fumbled them. And it seemed like the straw that broke the camel's back here for Kristi Noem was a hearing she was at on Capitol Hill. And there was a lot of rumors and reporting swirling around this $200 million ad that was done by DHS. And it was an ad that was supposed to, highlight all the great work they're doing on the border and rah, rah, America and all these different things. And this was supposed to be kind of this moment where Kristi Noem was going to defend spending $220 million on this ad campaign. Well, as it turns out, Senator John Kennedy, a Republican from Louisiana, decided he was going to ask Kristi Noem about this. And according to multiple reports, John Kennedy told the White House, hey, just so you guys know, I'm going to ask Kristi Noem about this $200 million ad campaign done by DHS. Now, if the White House didn't want this to happen, if they didn't want John Kennedy to bring this up, they would have told him, hey, I appreciate it, but let's not do that. As the reporting suggests, the White House didn't exactly tell John Kennedy, hey, don't go there, man. Don't go there. No, they were kind of like, okay, sure. And this is what it sounded like. And this was Kristi Noem claiming that the President of the United States signed off on this $200 million ad campaign, which she then ended up denying. And this was the end for Kristi Noem.
The president approved ahead of time you spending $220 million running TV ads across the country in which you are featured prominently.
Yes, sir. We went through the legal processes, did it correctly.
Did the president know you were going to do this?
Yes.
He did?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
And one thing, Senator, I think would be helpful to know is how effective that communications has been. That
well, they
overwhelmingly
were effective in your name recognition. I personally just, to me, it puts the president in a terribly awkward spot, and I'm not saying you're not telling the truth. It's just hard for me to believe, knowing the president as I do.
Now, the president told Reuters in a phone interview that he never knew anything about this $220 million ad campaign that DHS and Kristi Noem launched last year. So this was just the reason to get rid of Kristi Noem. They needed a reason, and this was the reason. That's it. I mean, if they wanted to protect her from this, they could have easily protected her from this. Let's be honest, okay? If Trump wanted to protect Kristi Noem, he would have protected Kristi Noem. Instead, he ends up blowing her out. And what did he, gosh, I don't have it in front of me, but he moved her to some kind of new job that ties to the Western Hemisphere. I'll have to look it up here, but she's got some new job. It's clearly a demotion. It's obvious what it is.
Can't remember. Something Shield here. I'm looking it up.
Yeah, don't worry about it. But she's got some new gig that's, clearly an obvious demotion. The Shield of Americas is what she's now going to be doing. I don't even know what that is. Right. I have no idea what it's tied to.
DC Comics, Marvel. Maybe.
Exactly. But whatever it is, it's obviously not running DHS. So now you've got Oklahoma U.S. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, who's going to be running DHS. I don't know if he would have been my pick. I mean, I don't know. He seems like he's kind of a fake tough guy as far as I can tell. I would have rolled with Tom Homan, but whatever. At this point, it's an upgrade from Kristi Noem, okay? So beggars can't be choosers in my book. I'll just leave it at that. But now you've got a situation where, the president's going to have to, I think, answer some questions here because the media is going to be all over this $200 million ad campaign from DHS, where also it looked like she may have just hired her friends from South Dakota and people that she knew to handle the $200 million ad campaign. I mean, $200 million to run an ad campaign for DHS where Kristi Noem's riding on a horse in front of Mount Rushmore? My goodness, I'm in the wrong line of work. That's what I kept thinking back to. Holy smokes. You get these contracts with the government, you can't go wrong. I ain't shooting fish in a barrel. $200 million. This thing, if it cost $20 million, I would have been surprised. $200 million. And guess what? I don't like this stuff. I don't like wasteful spending, whether it's Republicans or Democrats. And they're all in some ways guilty of it. But wow, this was the reason that they were able to get rid of Kristi Noem. Here's a little bit of what the ad sounded like. I never saw the ad anywhere. I don't know about you guys. I didn't see the ad anywhere. Now, maybe I'm not the target demo because, I support what they're doing, but I didn't see it anywhere.
Yeah, I didn't see it anywhere either, and that's a lot of money for nobody seeing it. Not many people seeing it.
Did you see it, John, as you were watching Jimmy Kimmel commercials?
I may be conjuring a recollection. It's like I go through YouTube, and it might have popped up there, and I'll hit skip or move on. So.
Well, here's a little bit of what it sounded like.
Why do I love these wide-open spaces? They remind me of why our forefathers came here. Not just for its beauty, but for the freedom only America provides. I'm Kristi Noem. From the cowboys who tamed the West, to the titans who built our cities, to the dreamers who chased the impossible, America has always rewarded vision and grit. Our greatness calls people to us for a chance to prosper, to live how they choose, to become part of something special. Anyone who searches for freedom can always find a home here. But that freedom's a precious thing, and we defend it vigorously.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
Cowboys of the West. More beans, Mr. Taggart?
Yeah. Oh, just tell me you're trying too hard without telling me you're trying too hard. Holy cow. Oh, man, if that's a $200 million ad, I am quitting today and getting into the ad agency business because that looks like a good time right there. Unbelievable. Goodbye, Kristi. R.I.P. Cricket. Thank you to Fox 4 in Kansas City for finally doing a news story on something I have been saying for the better part of 13 months. The Big 12 tournament happening right now in Kansas City for the women, the men happen next week, has no business taking place this week. This is the second year in a row that they have put the women at T-Mobile the week before the men. And no matter how the Big 12 tries to spin this, no matter how Kansas City officials try to spin this, this is not the best setup for Kansas City, and it's not the best setup for the Big 12 tournament. It's not. So, by the way, K-State, as you heard from John Anthony earlier in the news, is playing in the quarterfinals tonight. They upset Texas Tech in a 12-5 matchup yesterday, 58-51. K-State was down 10 points in this game with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Yeah, they play quarters in women's basketball. And they come roaring back for a 7-point win. That was the game I was supposed to be at with Claire, but she stayed home from school yesterday. She was sick. So I felt bad for her because she had to, it was one of those reading challenge things. They had to, read 12 books in January and exercise for 12 hours. And she was really proud of herself for doing it. And then she couldn't go yesterday. So I didn't have to go down there and chaperone. As a result, I was told they had plenty of parents available. So it was fine. But I was looking forward to doing it. But she wasn't able to go. But we watched the highlights at home because I got home yesterday. She said, "Who won?" I was like, "Oh, K-State won. They were down 10 and they came back." So we watched the highlights on YouTube. And it was pretty exciting. It looked like a great game, except for that ridiculous glass court they have at the Big 12. I mean, I see multiple players slipping all over it. It's like such a bad idea.
Why is it gray?
Oh.
Is there a reason?
Well, it was gray last year when they didn't have the glass court. It's the same look as last year, just on glass. So I don't know why the Big 12 has this awful-looking court, but they had it last year with the wood court, and now they've got it again with this glass court. It is the worst design of a basketball court I've ever seen, to your point.
Well, and some genius will go, "Look at these LEDs. It looks like real wood."
Yeah. No, it's such a bad look. Such a bad look. But, finally, Fox 4 yesterday did a package here where they talked to Kathy Nelson, the head of the Kansas City Sports Commission, and then they also talked to fans about the Big 12 tournament for the women being this week at T-Mobile. To set the stage, it used to be at Municipal the same week as the men. And it was great because you would have fans come from Des Moines and Dallas and Oklahoma City and Lubbock, and they'd come here and they'd watch the men play basketball, and then if they could, they'd also watch the women play basketball, and they could bounce back and forth if the games worked out right. T-Mobile, Municipal, great weekend, awesome time for Kansas City. What happened a few years ago is they said, well, we want the women to have the quality locker rooms and experience at T-Mobile just like the men. Okay, so now you move the women's tournament up by a week. You have it this week when the men's tournament is next week. But the problem is you're curtaining off the entire upper bowl at T-Mobile. You're giving away tickets to schools and things like that for the women's games yesterday to try to make it seem fuller than it actually otherwise would be. And great, they have a nicer locker room, but they're not getting as much true fan interaction and attendance as they otherwise would. It's just a fact. So here's part of Fox 4's reporting. And this is what it sounded like.
Since the women have started playing at T-Mobile Center, the attendance for their tournament has skyrocketed. They had more than 13,000 more fans last year than they had their last year at Municipal Auditorium.
Not to say that Municipal is not a fantastic place to play basketball. It absolutely is. And with Barney Ellis Plaza changing, it's perfect. But I know that between NCAA, Big 12, and other schools, the equity of it feeling the same, looking the same, and the same experience was very important.
But fans...
Very important to who? That's Kathy Nelson, who does an amazing job for Kansas City. I mean, she is one of the crown jewels of Kansas City. She is the reason that we've gotten all these, not the reason, I mean, she wouldn't take all the credit, but she is one of the big reasons that we've gotten an amazing number of events here in Kansas City. From World Cup, she was instrumental in putting together the NFL draft. She's just big sporting events happening in this town, largely at least coordinated by Kathy Nelson. But who is it important to exactly? Because I've heard multiple coaches, women's basketball coaches, be like, hey, I'm not sure this is the best thing for us. Iowa State's coach has said as much. You've heard from many coaches who are like, I'm not sure this actually works out in our favor. It's fine for KU because their fan base is here. K-State, their fan base is here. But for those who would travel, how many people can take off 2 weeks in a row and spend all the money on hotels and travel and things like that for women's basketball and then a week later men's basketball? Not many people. It's just the case. Not many people. But if it's just for Kansas City, okay, it's fine. But for the Big 12 tournament, for all 16 fan bases, this is not a good deal. It's just not.
Told me that seeing both their men's and women's teams in one trip would make it more worth it.
It's hard to take the time off work and come and support both of your teams. I go to all the men's games at Holmes. I would love to come down next week, but that's driving 10 hours again, taking 3 or 4 days off work, getting more accommodations and all that.
Yeah, it gets expensive. I mean, you know, we all work hard for our money, and we want to make sure we can watch as much fun basketball as we can. So I think it'd be really cool if we could have it on the same weekend.
Yeah, and it used to be that way, and now it's not. So when the Big 12 says, oh, our attendance was up 13,000 for the women's tournament last year, having it at T-Mobile versus the last previous season at Municipal, that's great, but who is in that 13,000? If the 13,000 is just people around Kansas City who are looking for something to do, that's fine. But are you actually doing what's in the best interest of your 16 fan bases around the country, from Orlando to Morgantown to Provo to Tucson to back here in Kansas City? And that answer is overwhelmingly no. No matter how they try to spin it, the answer is no. And to do this in the name of perceived equity, air quotes, come on. I mean, that was a thing in 2021. I mean, you could make the case that Municipal obviously is a much more historic arena. How about this? All right, you want to make this interesting? How about this? Play the men's championship at Municipal. Bring back the history of Municipal and all its Final Fours and all its glory days from college basketball. Put the men's championship game inside of Municipal. I know some people will freak out, and because of attendance sizes and the, size of the arena, the amount of seats, it's never going to happen. But if you want to lean into the history of college basketball in this town in particular and in that arena, you know what you do? You take the women's tournament and the men's tournament and you flip-flop them for the championship game the same weekend, and you highlight the history of Municipal in Kansas City for this sport on the biggest stage in college basketball, the Big 12 championship. Just throwing it out there, Brett Yormark. If you want to do anything with it, that's up to you, my man. But I would love to see that happen. And then you would take that equity card and you would throw it right out the window. Right out the window. Now, speaking of sports, yesterday, the President of the United States, did you see that he walked in to his meeting with the MLS team? What was it? Intercontinental Miami, right? That's the team that won the MLS championship this year with Messi?
Yep.
Okay. So he walks into the meeting yesterday side by side with Messi and the head coach. And it was like a WWE moment where, the doors swing open and Trump is walking alongside Messi and they're kind of strolling in together and the team's already up there at the podium. It was quite a scene. And before he goes on to talk about, of course, MLS, and he's highlighting these guys, and credit to them for showing up and Messi for being there and not being awkward about it. Just, go do your thing, okay? It's the White House. Trump's got to give an update on Operation Epic Fury. So he gives the update on Operation Epic Fury, and it's kind of awkward because he's got these soccer guys behind him as he's talking about, blowing up the Iranian Navy. Oh, my goodness. Here's what it sounded like.
The Navy is gone. 24 ships in 3 days. That's a lot of ships. Their anti-aircraft weapons are gone. So they have no air force. They have no air defense. All of their airplanes are gone. Their communications are gone. Missiles are gone. Launches are gone. About 60% and 64% respectively.
Messi's standing right behind Trump like, what am I doing here, man? This is...
Argentina loves USA.
Trump's talking about taking out the Iranian Navy. He's like, I just felt the need to give you an update on Operation Epic Fury before I talk to Messi about a little football here. Okay, here we go.
Other than that, they're doing quite well. I said, what's left? But they're tough. And they want to fight, and they're calling, they're saying, how do we make a deal? I said, you're being a little bit late, and we want to fight now more than they do. Oh. We've had 47 years, depending on the way you count it, but 47 years of horror with this group.
So he goes on for another maybe 2 minutes or so, and then he gets to the MLS and gets to the soccer team, Intercontinental Miami, and them winning the championship last year and the whole thing. But you could feel how uncomfortable it was for those soccer players. Not that they're necessarily against it, but giving a massive foreign policy update before you're getting set to be like, rah, rah, soccer team. That's a tough spot for everybody right there. You can tell the coach, he's standing behind the president, and he doesn't want to make faces, so he's trying to smile, but then he's like, I don't want to smile. It's not really appropriate to smile, so, like, what do I do? So you can see the facial expressions of the coach for the soccer team kind of ebbing and flowing as Trump's giving his information on Operation Epic Fury. It was something out of, like, I don't know, West Wing or maybe more like Veep. It's probably a better comparison. Jobs report just dropping here literally 3.5 minutes ago. And jobs numbers were expected to be plus 58,000 for the month. They came in at a negative 92,000. So that is off by 160,000 based on the projections. Unemployment is at 4.4%, ticking up from 4.3%. So once again, this is the breaking news. U.S. losing 92,000 jobs in February. Unemployment rising to 4.4%. Economists had expected 55,000 jobs added, and for the unemployment rate to hold steady at 4.3%. So that news coming in, the jobs report is a miss for the month. Now, what are the details here? All right, looking at some of the numbers, just real quick, I'll go through this. First off, if you want some good news coming out of this, we continue to shed federal government jobs, down 10,000 in the month. Since reaching a peak in October of 2024, federal government employment is down 330,000. Woo! That's a big number. Or 11%. Just over the last, 14, 15 months. Now, healthcare employment declined by 28,000 in February, following a large increase in January of 78,000. Offices of physicians lost 37,000 jobs in February. That is primarily due to strike activity. So healthcare has become every single month one of the big job gainers because it's basically a government adjacent industry now. So when there's a strike and you've got that happening, that may throw off these numbers a little bit. Healthcare has been averaging 36,000 new jobs per month over the last year. So something to look at there. Employment and information continue to trend down in February. That industry has lost 5,000 jobs per month over the last 12 months. The federal government also shedding jobs as well. Transportation and warehousing employment down 10,000 jobs last month. So that's going to be the headline, and you'll see more of this. And as we get more information on it, I will share it with you here on KCMO. But the headline story is that there was a loss of 92,000 jobs in February. The expectations were for an additional 58,000 jobs. How about how bad these projections are? In January, the projections were for an additional, 50,000 jobs. And it turned out they added over 100,000 jobs in January. So that one was off on the other end. This one's off to the negative. I mean, figuring out how they're making these estimates is something that someone has to redo. They're worse than the weather guys. And the weather guys are good. I'm not trying to rag on the weather guys after having Luke Doris on here. But I'm just saying, whoever's projecting these economic numbers, they are way off, either on the good side or the bad side. It just depends on the month. All right, let's get back here to Johnson County. This story coming from Fox 4. The NAACP of Olathe is very upset with the assessments coming out in Johnson County, Kansas. And I don't know if you noticed this, but if you got your assessment in the mail this week, which you should have if you were in Johnson County, I thought it was very interesting how they went about the comps that they were using. So this was noted by NAACP Olathe Chairman Henry Lyons in this report on Fox 4, which then drew some pushback from Mike Kelly, the Johnson County chairman. Here's what this sounded like last night on Fox 4. Let's roll it.
If a property sold for $1 million and it almost compares with another property, they're going to list that sale. But say another property that is exactly or more like the comparable sale, but it sold for $800,000, they won't list that one because that doesn't give them the right to increase your assessment more.
But Johnson County Chairman Mike Kelly says they're just following the rules from the state. And the Kansas legislature sets the rules on how the appraisal process has to be done. So many of the factual assertions that Mr. Lyons has brought forward are just simply factually inaccurate.
But Lyons alleges that the county only checks the high sales and don't really know what's going on.
Like in some comparables, the house has a swimming pool. And they'll say, well, this matches the house down the street. It doesn't have one, and it has larger square footage. They'll try to make it fit because they want that higher number.
Concerned by the process, Lyons sent a letter to the Johnson County Board of Commissioners asking for a change. Being a seller's market, Kelly says,
Johnson County is a hot market. We've seen increases in appraised values because under Kansas statute, we have to appraise homes based on comparable sale values.
Another issue that Lyons says they want to bring attention to is freezing property values for people 65 and older. He says when you're 65, you shouldn't have to worry about what you're going to do year after year.
So good job by Henry Lyons. I disagree with him on that last point of freezing property taxes for 65 plus. That's not a way to solve any of this. All that does is shift the burden onto younger people, and the burden is already on younger people for Social Security and Medicare and everything else. Subsidizing property taxes is not the answer. Okay. Every generation has done some of this subsidizing of the older generation. Everyone's done it. I get it. It's part of how, unfortunately, the system is built. But we don't need to do more of that right now. The problem is, first off, the appraisals that are just way too high. You've got these things now in Johnson County. I was up 7%. I know some of you are up anywhere from 10, 15 to 20%. And he is right to note, I noticed this as well for myself, that the comps that are on the green piece of paper that you'll get if you're a Johnson County resident, it'll say, here's your appraisal from last year, here's your appraisal for this year, and then here are 3 comps that led us to your number. Well, I was looking at some of these homes that are in just my comps, and I'm like, well, that guy, to Henry's point, has a pool. That guy's got, an extra bedroom, because you can look all this stuff up. It's right there on Zillow. This guy's got, one more bathroom than I've got. So, yeah, the home might be in the neighborhood, but they're not comps. They're not. So for me, it's funny because there's a house near me that's for sale, and it's almost the exact same spec, size, bedrooms, bath as what I've got. And the sale is pending right now. And if the sale goes through at the price that was asked by the seller, I cannot wait to use that in my appeal because it's about 7-8% less than what they've got my appraisal at. So I'm eyeballing that thing being like, I hope I get it done by the deadline of March 25th or whatever it is, because you've got to appeal by the end of March in Johnson County, Kansas. And then I'm going to say, boom, look at this house right here. This is a direct comp to what I've got. And you guys are trying to squeeze me for an extra 7-8%, John.
I think reflecting inward at being at 65, I'm with you on the thing. Each piece of property comes with the responsibility of paying taxes is the way I look at it. So I can't be as a 65-year-old saying, none for me, but hey, make that data center pay.
Well, yes. And if we're all in this together, we should all fight it together. I don't want to be in a situation where, if we just start freezing property taxes for people at 65, then at 65, you're like, hey, good luck to you chumps at 40 and 45. You guys keep fighting the man, but, we're safe here at 65. I don't want that. We've got to fight this thing together. That's what we've got to do. Because it's really us against them. And by them, I mean, the governments that are obviously setting these appraisals. They're trying to squeeze every last dollar out of these appraisals that they can. And then even if they say, don't worry, your mill rate's going to come down, or we're not going to raise your mill rate. Sorry, your taxes are going up, but the mill rate's staying the same. They get to use that narrative against the taxpayers when mill rates don't actually pay for taxes. Real dollars do. And that's what I think people are starting to wake up to. 913-408-7957. So that's what's going on right now in Johnson County. Good job by Fox 4. I don't know what Henry Lyons can really do about this, but bringing awareness to it, I think, is valuable. And that's where I hope that there is a lot of pushback. I hope that people are smart with their appeals. I had not appealed the last couple of years because I thought that they were a little high, but relatively fair. This year, I'll be appealing for the first time in probably 3-ish years. And I think, a lot of us have a good case because right now the housing market is softening relative to where it's been the last few years because people are just realizing they're priced out between the price point of the home being high, between interest rates still being a little sticky. And then when you factor in property taxes and homeowners insurance, you're looking at that monthly nut and you're like, this is expensive, man. This is expensive. Ashley, go ahead. You're on KCMO.
Hey, Mundo, I'm wondering what's going to happen when they've frozen that tax rate for somebody who's over that age of 65 and somebody like me who's 47 wants to buy that house. Do they automatically compensate for it so that tax rate automatically jumps like 40% or something? Or how do they compensate for that when somebody under the age of 65 buys a house?
Yeah, well, you're in Belton, as I understand. Yet you've got it in Missouri, by the way. I believe that there's now a new law in Missouri that allows homeowners 62 and older to freeze their primary residence property tax liability. So I think that you've got something right now like that in Missouri. I think it's terrible policy. I believe California does something like this as well. And it's a way for the politicians to make it feel like they're taking care of people, especially as they get older and theoretically retire. But they're not actually solving the problem. They're just solving the problem for some people. And then to your point, when they sell that house and someone else buys it, the property taxes are going to the roof. And no one really knows what those are going to be. So it makes it hard as a buyer to figure out what your monthly cost is going to be.
Yeah, and that's going to seriously discourage me from wanting to buy a home like that. I mean, my husband and I have been waiting for the interest rates to drop, and we've been saving our money to get a bigger down payment because of the situation with the economy right now. And this is going to be another amount that we're going to have to figure in there. And it's not going to help those of us who are needing to buy a house and are wanting to buy a house and wanting to help the economy in that way. So it's really just messing those of us up who want to help the economy and who want to become home buyers. So it's really not, it's really a double-edged sword, if you ask me.
It is. Thank you, Ashley. Great call. I appreciate it. You're absolutely right. So this is why, too, and I touched a little bit on this yesterday. The president is not getting great marks on the economy. I think he's done a lot of what he can do and what he can control to try to spur the private sector and get this thing humming again. But take this issue, the housing issue. He can't lower interest rates. And by the way, if he does, you're playing with fire because you could spark inflation again. He can't control the fact that people can't afford homes in part because the property taxes are up 40-50% over the last 5-6 years because local government spending is wildly out of control. Like those things that people are feeling the pinch on, he can't control. Health insurance keeps going up and up and up. And I know people want to point to him and say, well, you should have subsidized Obamacare. The thing's been a disaster since it was put in place 15, 16 years ago now. Okay? And subsidizing it through the federal government is not the answer. It's just kicking the can down the road on a bad, failed program. So those things that are driving up costs for everyday people are not really things the federal government has large control over. And I don't know how you change the narrative if you're the president going into a midterm year where people are still saying, hey, I'm feeling the pinch right now. Fox 4 ran a great piece last night as the NAACP of Olathe is looking to push back, maybe get into legal tussle with Johnson County over the assessment that got sent out this week on the Kansas side of the state line. On the text line, Pete, I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but taxing unrealized gains on your house should be illegal. Thanks so much. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Think about it. It'd be like if you own Apple stock and your Apple stock keeps getting more valuable every year. And then every year you're paying taxes on stock that you have not sold. Right now, I mean, how does it work? You just own that Apple stock and you have all these unrealized gains. And then, yes, when you sell the stock, if you sell the stock, you'll pay a tax on the gains. But until you sell it, there's no tax. But every year we're getting taxed on property. And, you know, we're told it's to do things like trash pickup and roads and potholes and, all those basic services and the schools and things like that. but it has gotten so out of control. It's been used for these city and county governments to expand and grow to, I think, unsustainable levels. And at some point, it's going to just absolutely blow up in their face. Alex is in Kansas on KCMO. What's up, Alex?
Hey, Pete. I was talking to a tax assessor about 5 years ago, and it was the same deal, comp houses. And I asked him, I go, well, why? Well, mine doesn't match you at all. Explain this more to me. And he goes, everybody right now, and currently everybody still is paying more than the market value for houses. 99% of the time. So basically what happens is when you sell your home for more than the market value, they're going to use that to explain to the last lady, your taxes essentially is going up because somebody sold their house for more than it was worth. So that's how you get your assessed value and stuff like that to increase so high, is because people continue to sell houses over market value.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's but the only slight pushback I would have on that is if someone bought it for a price, then that is technically the market value. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of question the whole, well, it got sold for more than market value. I mean, if someone bought the house for X dollars, that's the market value in the free market,
now
right?
We're talking eBay numbers here.
Yeah, I mean,
what is something worth versus
yeah,
what somebody paid for it?
Exactly, exactly. Now, you're right. We were through a 5-year crazy period of time here where people were paying way more for these houses than they should have been paying. But at the same time, you know, supply and demand created that situation. So was it really more, or was it just kind of what the marketplace was bearing at that time? Here's what's going to be interesting, and this is years down the road. But somebody in the construction industry a couple of weeks ago told me that the housing market probably is going to stay strong for the next decade. But the projections in the industry are that in 2037, so, I mean, I know it sounds like a long ways away, but it's like 10 years away from now, there could be a massive downturn in the housing market. Now, why would that be? Because that is the year that boomers are going to start dying at expedited rates. And they are the largest wealth owners in the country. So as they start to die, and by the way, younger generations are not reproducing and having as many kids, you could have then an oversupply of homes available out there. 2037 is the industry projection for when the housing market could actually hit a massive reset in this country and just tilt back the other way in huge favor of the buyer. And yeah, it's a long ways away, but it's just math. When you have a boomer generation that's the largest and you know richest generation in the country suddenly either passing away or moving on and out of their single-family homes, that could be a huge opportunity. So what happens then? If the housing market has a massive reset on the downside, what happens with these appraisals? And then what do these county and local governments do with their mill rates to try to keep the government growing? Because that's all they care about. That's what they're in the business of doing here. That's what they want to do. And I know that that's like 10 years down the road, but it's just something to think about because right now they're living high on the hog here. They are just loving these appraisals in Johnson County continuing to go up because then they can soak you, because Johnson County's gone from a $900 million budget less than 10 years ago to a $1.9 billion budget this year. They've doubled in less than a decade. It's sick and it's totally unsustainable.